Yeah, so we'll get started today. Like Jorge said, I'm Holly. I'm a data and analytics technical advisor here at Novi, and we'll be spending the next 30 minutes or so walking through something that is going to probably be genuinely useful for a lot of you, and that's shapefile filtering in the Novi Insights platform. So the format today will be mostly a live demo. I'll do a couple minutes of context up front, then we'll get straight in the platform. And like I said, you can drop questions in the chat as we go, and we'll get to them at the end. We're also recording this, so you'll get a link to the replay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Um, but the question we're going to be answering today is one that many of you probably think about and every day, and that's what can your acreage position tell you about your assets? Who's operating on your land? How are they performing? And what infrastructure is nearby? So here's my screen. And it doesn't matter what side of the business you're sitting on, land, midstream, subsurface folks, A&D teams, corporate dev, mineral owners. The question may be different depending on your role, but the underlying need is going to be the same. It's understanding what's happening in a specific geographic area, not necessarily the whole basin. So the feature we're going to be using to answer that question is shapefile filtering and Novi Insights. So you'll bring your own geographic data into the platform. You can apply it as a filter, and every chart will instantly scope to that footprint. So it's your data, your geography, your lens. So today I will spend the first few minutes on some pipeline context that will make the back half of the demo land better. Then I'll walk you through what it actually looks like to upload a shapefile into Novi. And then from there, we'll set the stage with a quick look at Reeves County before we work through two shapefile filtering use cases, and that's filtering by a lease boundary and filtering by a pipeline corridor. We're going to be using two shapefile data sources that are publicly available, and that's the University Lands lease data from the Texas General Lands Office, as well as crude oil pipeline data from the EIA. So before we dive into the platform, I want to spend 2 minutes on something that I think will make the second half of the demo more meaningful, and that's talking about proximity to pipelines. So why does it matter whether your acreage is close to a pipeline? Oil does not flow directly from the wellhead to a major transmission line. It has to travel through small gathering lines to a processing facility. From there, the stabilized crude will enter a larger transmission pipeline heading to the Gulf Coast refineries or export terminals. If there's no pipeline infrastructure nearby, the producer's only option is trucking, and trucking's pretty expensive. So pipeline transports cost 30 cents per barrel, trucking costs around $2.50, and that difference comes directly out of what the producer receives for their oil. And for mineral and royalties folks, this plays out in a very specific way. So mineral rights valuation guides consistently identify pipeline proximity as a major driver of value in their acreage because better infrastructure means lower operating costs, and those lower operating costs are going to support more aggressive development. So more wells drilled, it means more royalty income. So when you're evaluating a mineral position, pipeline proximity is a real proxy for how actively you can expect that acreage to get developed. And the pipeline we're going to be looking at for today's demo is the Epic crude pipeline. It originates in Orla County, or sorry, Orla, Texas, in northern Reeves County. It runs 730 miles to the Port of Corpus Christi, picking up volumes from Permian terminals and some terminals in the Eagle Ford Basin. Interesting ownership story that's new is as of last November, Plains All American owns 100% of this pipeline after a pair of back-to-back deals that consolidated the ownership. And we're going to be focusing on Epic today because it's in Reeves County, where we're going to be looking and demoing these shapefile filtering. So let's get straight into the platform. So I'm in Novi Insights. And before we start filtering, first step is you have to get your shapefile into the platform. So in order to do that, I'm going to open up the map layers panel right here. I'm going to click on this gear icon, which will open up my manage shapefiles window. And the upload tab will automatically be selected. So a couple of important things before you start uploading shapefiles is that you have to give it a name first. So I'm going to call it the Epic Crude Pipeline. You can see it's already filled out. And the second thing that you have to know is grouping. So grouping is a really nice part of the shapefile process because it's how you keep your shapefiles organized. So you can either choose an existing shapefile, you can add a new group, or sorry, you can choose an existing group or you can add a new group. If you don't choose a group, your shapefile is automatically going to land into the other group. So I'm going to click on the for demo because that's where my other shapefiles, you can see that I already have the EIA's like entire network of crude oil pipelines turned on. And what you can't see is I also have my university lands leases in Reeves County uploaded as well. So I'm going to be uploading just the Epic crude pipeline that we talked about a moment ago. Um, so here on the upload panel, I can also choose a color. So I'll choose something that's pretty high contrast. I can change the transparency with the slider bar here. And then I can also adjust the outline thickness. And I'm ready to upload. So you can click to browse or drag and drop. I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop my shapefile. So another thing to know is that it has to be a zip with all four components of your shapefile in there. Shouldn't be something that you have to worry about, as most GIS tools will export as a shapefile as a zip file anyway. I'll place it on that blue rectangle and I get a message that's telling me that the shapefile meets the size requirements for shapefile filtering. Let's stick a pin in that because it's something important to note, but we'll come back to it later. I'll hit OK. I'll hit save. And you should see that purple line that is that Epic pipeline starting in Texas and the Panhandle of Texas and ending up in Corpus Christi show up right away. If I head back to that Manage Shapefiles panel, here I can add groups if I wanted to. I can edit the group names or trash them. And I can also drag and drop to change the ordering of my shapefiles. There's another place you can do that as well. I can also download my shapefile, trash it, or edit the coloring, line thickness, etc. So quick note about shapefile filtering is that there is a size limit on size of shapefile that you can upload into the platform for visualization, and that's 250 megabytes. For shapefile filtering, there's also some size requirements. So it has to be under 50,000 vertices. If it's over 50,000 vertices, you can still upload it. You just can't filter by it. The platform, as you saw, will give you a message letting you know that it's available for filtering. And if it's too complex, has more than 50,000 vertices, you'll get a message letting you know it's too big, but you can still view it in the platform. So now I'm ready to go. If I wanted to change the ordering of my layers, I can also drag and drop in this map layers window as well. But I will keep that there. And we're ready to look at Reeves County. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on a filter. I'll only be looking at my horizontal wells today, and my focus is going to be on Reeves County. So I'll type that into the counties, click it, hit apply, and the platform's going to zoom me right into Reeves County. So to kind of set the stage, looking at Reeves County, we're going to go over to our rankings tab to see the county level leaderboard on total oil production. So right now, this chart is looking at total oil production in barrels, and it's grouped by current operator. I can change that if I want in this dropdown. So in Reeves County, Permian Resources is at the top by a pretty wide margin, followed by Chevron, Oxy, Devon, and BP. This is the raw total oil. If you're ever interested in normalizing it by lateral length to see oil per foot, you can do that here. For today's purposes, we're going to be just looking at the raw total oil value. So I can also, if I wanted to, view that data over time here in this graph, which will show you the cumulative oil values over time. So you can see a big spike in 2019 before COVID, and then oil production started ticking back up. We'll navigate back to this ranking tab. And I also want to point out that in this map legend, I can see how many wells are within that are turned on by this filter, represented by this filter. And we'll watch how that number changes when we turn on our first filtering, shapefile filtering. So let's get into that. So I'm going to start to look at wells that are within these university lands leases in Reeves County. So I'm going to navigate over to my filter pane, hit the shapefile drop down, and then I see my for demo group. I'm going to select that drop down, navigate over to my university lands leases in Reeves County. And then I have two options here. I can either select the filter to be selecting wells that are contained within, which will be wells that sit entirely inside the lease polygons. Intersect is going to be a little bit broader. It's going to capture any well that crosses into that boundary. So a lateral that starts outside a lease but lands inside it will get included. For today, I'm going to hit intersect and I'm going to hit apply. And we'll watch how this bar chart changes as well as the well counts. Okay, so we've got pretty different numbers. So we had around 7,700 wells, and now we're down to 3,700. The leaderboard has changed. Permian Resources is still firmly at the top, but Oxy and Devon changed places, and Chevron dropped down to number 6. So that's giving you a picture of who is producing the most volumes in your acreage. I can also hover over these bars to see exactly how much total oil production I have and how many wells. I can click on these bars as well to highlight where those Permian Resources wells, or whichever operator I choose, where those are located in space. Another note down here is if I wanted to look at who is actively permitting, I can click on my map legend. I'm going to look at permit submitted and permit approved. And that will highlight the wells that are permitted but not yet drilled. So if I wanted to look at more information about these wells, who's permitting on my acreage or the acreage of it, the lease of interest, I can come down here, click on this well, view the well card, and that's going to give me life cycle dates as well as a link directly to the state filing. So I could look at the permit myself. It's easy as that. So I will zoom back out, zoom to my data, click off of this permit approved, and we'll look at the total production in a different way. There's a couple options for charts in this rankings tab. I can look at it in a pie chart view. This is still not normalized data. This is total oil production. Same data, different lens. So now I'm seeing each operator's share of the total production within the lease footprint. I can see Permian, Devon, Oxy, EOG, all of these companies are making up a pretty big chunk of the total oil production, and I have a longer, smaller tail with a lot of companies with only a little bit of a footprint in my lease area. I can hover over these wedges to get details and again, click on them to highlight where those wells are. So I'm looking at TRP, who has 124 wells that cross into my lease boundaries, and I can see where they are in space. And I can also see what their well statuses are. So I'll click off of that. And now we're going to go over to the activity tab with the lease filter still on. So cool thing about Shapefile filtering, it's not just scoping to the wells and the productions, it's also controlling the rig and frac data. So everything on this tab is specific to this lease position too. What rigs and frac crews what permits are within the lease position that I'm interested in. Lease position that I'm interested in. So this is a rigs versus time chart. And there's also the ability you can control this line as well. So I'm going to switch this instead of frac crews. Let's look at WTI price. And instead of basin, we're going to switch down to current operator. So now I'm looking at rig activity over time. This goes back to June of 2025. And I can see like since the beginning of the year, rig activity has remained pretty flat within my lease footprint, even as oil prices have risen, and they're a lot lower since last year. And down here, I'm going to take a look at approved permits over the last 7 days of available activity. Turn it on by operator, and I can see who has approved permits. Captain Energy has 3 approved permits in the last 7 days of available data. So this is pretty an actionable signal right here. Who's putting rigs and permits on your specific acreage right now? I can click on these to highlight where those rigs are in space. Okay. So now let's move into our second filtering use case. I'm going to stay right here on the activity tab so we can watch the rig story change. But instead of looking at the lease filter, I'm going to switch to the Epic pipeline shapefile and look at the corridor around that. So I'll come back to my shapefile filtering section. I'm going to click off of the university lands leases. And you can notice that the pipeline shapefiles are grayed out. So important thing to note, anything that is a line will require a buffer to filter upon it. Lines don't have area, so you have to create a polygon around that line in order to capture wells, rigs, frac crews. So watch as soon as I turn on this buffer, add buffer, that those shapefiles now become available for filtering. I'm going to click on this Epic crude pipeline. We'll keep it at 10 miles, hit apply. And automatically my charts, my map will scope to that filter. And again, I'm only looking at Reeves County. So I'm looking at this pipeline corridor only in Reeves County. So look at we can observe like what happened in the rig activity. We can see that instead of staying flat, we see an increase in rig activity from the beginning of the year, which is an interesting trend. It's trending up and it's not flat. I can tighten the buffer down to 5 miles to look at the wells most immediately dependent on this line. I'll hit apply. That buffer will instantly tighten up. And I can still see that increasing rig activity as the WTI price has gone up since the beginning of the year. Pretty interesting that we didn't see it in Reeves County overall, but we are seeing it along this pipeline corridor. Hypothesis for why wells near a major takeaway line like Epic will have lower transport costs and will capture more of that higher WTI price. There's another thing I want to surface here that's important and of use when looking at pipeline corridors, and that's DUCs. So that's drilled uncompleted wells. To highlight those on the map, I can go down and click on my legend, see where the DUCs are, and I'm going to zoom in and I'll go to the well card again. So here's my DUC. I'll view the well card. And then I can see life cycle dates here at the bottom. So I can see when this well's permit was submitted versus when it was spud. It looks like the drilling end date was December of last year. This is important because DUC inventory, a DUC is inventory that's already been drilled and can be completed and brought online quickly. So a cluster of DUCs sitting inside a pipeline corridor like this is near-term value signal. Those are barrels that are likely coming coming to where there's infrastructure for transport literally right on top of those wells. So now I'm going to move over to the production tab here, and I'm going to look at production over time. Um, Let me click off of the ducts since they will not have production data. Okay. Um, the top chart is oil rate versus months on production, colored by vintage year. Um, and then the bottom chart is what we'll be looking at more deeply. So that's production over calendar time. I'm going to group this by operator. And because I'm zoomed in, we'll zoom out and see that data scope instantly to that pipeline corridor, that 5 mile pipeline corridor in Reeves County. I'm also going to turn on forecasting. So that forward portion is Novi's forecast. So for every active well, Novi runs an auto-regressive machine learning forecast, and it's being combined up to the current operator level. So you can see in this area, production peaked at 232,000 barrels in 2019, before kind of flattening. Um, and we can see that the forecast tail is extending to 2030. I can edit this by editing my sliders. I can lengthen out this tail if I wanted to see further into history. So that bulk forward volume is going to come from the major operators here. Permian Resources is the big one. So so Permian how Permian chooses to bring their wells online is going to kind of determine how this forecasting is going to look going into the future. So if you're a midstream company and you're sizing or contracting capacity on a line like Epic, what has already been produced is only half the question. The other half is the forecasted volumes and what's coming. So having a modeled forecast like this can, in the same view as historical production, is something that used to take two softwares or two engineering workflows, and you can do it all really quickly in one platform. Okay, and so that's it for today. We're at 2:25. I want to leave some time for Q&A. But if you have a shapefile of your acreage, your leases, a project area, even a DSU boundary, a proposed well that you want to look around, if you can represent those as a shapefile, you can bring it in the platform and use it here in a workflow like this. So you no longer have to choose between geographic precision and analytical depth. You can have both of those in one view, which means faster and more confident decisions. So thanks everyone for your time. We'll be happy to take questions now. Let's look at this chat to see the questions. I'll expand it open and we'll see if there. No questions so far. Okay. If anybody wants to put a question into the chat. Oh, there's one. I see. Okay. Yeah, how do you approach white space from operator sharing lease lines or from an aerial production? So we're talking about the white space of wells that aren't yet drilled. So yeah, that's a really great question. So we do have a different product that offers those, that builds out. Our intelligence team builds out all possible PUD wells, proposed undeveloped wells in the major basins. So that's something that we do have as a product, but it's not available in the Insight Engine platform. But all of those wells are drawn out and have is that right? All those wells are drawn out and have forecasted volumes.
Yeah, and just to add to what Holly was explaining is in Insights, what you're observing is everything that is operating right now, PDPs, and you can do look at production. There is also forecasting that we do on these PDPs that you can see. But anything that is white space, as Holly mentioned, we have this product called intelligence, which we have analysts just dedicating time looking at that white space. How would an operator who owns it first and how will they develop it? And we cannot have ideas on how they will develop, when we look at the history on the area nearby, what the decisions they have made in terms of spacing, completions, and so on. And based on those, we use that and together with a machine learning model that we have, and then we forecast them. That machine learning model is very thorough, uses all the information about your properties, completions, of all the wells that have in the basin so that it can give you the best forecast. And so we do cover all the white space that we consider, and with that we have basically future inventory for multiple basins. So thank you for that question, Tom. I hope we answer it. If not, please add more to it and we will answer it.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, here we go. How often? Okay, so how often do you update your data set and is it always up to date? For the well prediction, is it similar to DCA? So as far as how often we update our data set, we are as up to date. We update it every day. So we are constantly pulling from state sources. A note on production, we source that from state sources, but we also get production through our Novi data network, which is where operators, mineral royalty owners provide us with their production numbers, which are in the platform, and you can see those by looking. We have a label called has production sharing, and you can see if those volumes are coming from the state or coming from the operator themselves. Um, so it's as up to date as there's often a lag at the state level. So it's up to date as what's being reported on the state. For well production prediction, is it similar to DCA? Um, Jorge can probably add a more in-depth answer, but we use autoregressive machine learning for forecasting and not a traditional decline curve analysis.
Yeah, that's correct. And there is always this intention, right? Like you can predict production from a PDP, which, is here inside something that is product. You are using all the information about the well, but you're using the history of the well. So we
Mhm.
use a machine learning algorithm to predict the future. Now, we don't do it all the way to UR. We do it up to the next following 3 years. And then we use basically ARPS fit for the
Mhm.
rest of it. But the core really is that first months. If you have wells that only have a month or 2 months of production, that's where DCA may not be the best. And this machine learning approach actually shows more robustness in terms of quality and accuracy. And so for that matter, we trust on AI and that's kind of how we work. And we are always improving our algorithms. There was an additional question
Yeah.
that was deleted, but it was around
I
shape
answered
files.
that one. That's why it went away. I didn't
Oh, okay,
realize if I
okay.
answered it would remove them.
But
So
so that everybody knows about the answer, let's answer it verbally
I was
as
wondering, Holly,
well.
why don't you I hate to call you out on the spot here live, but you want to try and
Yeah.
demo the shapefile creation real quick?
Oh, to shapefile create. Yeah, let's do it. We
Yeah,
have
that's what
a
it was. It
brand.
was the question was about the ability to create your own shapefile within the app, and this is a brand new feature, so works with the lasso tool. I'll let you walk through it.
So let's see if I want to look at, for example, these wells with production sharing down here. I'm going to draw a polygon around them. Note that this polygon will select the wells that intersect it. Double click to close. And that's going to turn on a filter that's selecting just the wells within these polygons. And then I have the ability to create a layer from this selection. So again, giving me the notification that this polygon is available for Shapefile Filter. Click OK, I'll name it. Um, let's change the color real quick. We'll turn it to green. I'll hit save. Um, so I created a layer from that selection. I put it in the for demo group. So now it's right there. So I can always go back to it. And then I can also manage it, change the colors, change the name if I wanted to. And then I can also, what this is also the save selection is it's going to save all of these wells within my selection as a shape file as well. And it will give you information about those wells within the metadata of that shape file.
Yeah, it ultimately ends up being three layers. There's a layer for the well sticks, a layer for the points on the wells, and then one layer for the polygon that you drew. And then, yeah, Holly's correct. There is some attribute information. A header information is also given in the attribute table. So well status, operator, well name, stuff like that.
Yep, it's pretty cool. It's brand new. So that's a great question.
And I'm glad it worked on a live demo. So good stuff.
Um, well, if you guys, we're over time. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us, or want to see something else, just let us know, and we would be happy to share more with you. Oh, there's a lot of second guessing around Devon and Matador bids on the BLM till you realize they share lease lines. That's a very interesting observation. I appreciate that. Um, All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for coming, and feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'd love to speak with you more.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.